Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair aboard the exploration vessel Horizon's Edge. The ship moved slowly through the dark space near the edge of human territory. Stars dotted the black void like tiny diamonds scattered on velvet cloth. Jake watched the main screen show empty space and distant planets that nobody had ever visited. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of the ship's engines. Lisa Carter sat at her communications station, listening to radio signals from distant worlds. Tony Rodriguez worked at the engineering console, checking the ship's systems for any problems. Dr. Kate Sullivan reviewed medical reports in her chair near the back of the bridge. Ryan Brooks studied star maps at the tactical station, planning their next patrol route. They had been on patrol for 3 weeks without seeing another ship. This was normal for the Outer Rim. Most humans stayed closer to Earth where it was safer and more comfortable. Jake liked the quiet, though. Out here, a person could think clearly without all the noise and crowds of the inner systems. Lisa suddenly sat up straight in her chair. Her hands moved quickly over her console as she adjusted her equipment. Strange sounds came from her speakers. Not the usual empty static of space, but something else. Something that sounded almost like music mixed with electronic signals. "Captain, I'm picking up something unusual," Lisa said. Her voice carried a note of excitement. "It's not human. The signal is coming from the Zarathi system, about 6 light-years from here." Jake turned his chair toward her. "What kind of signal?" "It's encrypted, but the computer is working on it. The transmission pattern is unlike anything in our databases. It's definitely from an intelligent source, and it's repeating every few minutes." Tony looked up from his station. "Could be a first contact situation, Captain. We've never had confirmed contact with aliens before." Dr. Sullivan moved closer to Lisa's station. "Are you sure it's not some kind of natural phenomenon? Radio signals from space can be tricky." "I'm certain this is artificial," Lisa replied. "The pattern is too regular and complex to be natural. It's definitely a message of some kind." Ryan stepped away from his console. "Should we report this to Earth Command first?" "First contact protocols say we need authorization before approaching unknown alien signals." Jake stood up and walked to the front of the bridge. He looked at the main screen showing the direction of the Zarathi system. Earth Command was weeks away by faster-than-light communication. By the time they received permission to investigate, the aliens might be gone. "How long until the computer breaks the encryption?" Jake asked. Lisa's fingers danced over her controls. "Maybe another hour, Captain. The alien mathematics are different from ours, but there are patterns the computer can recognize." Jake made his decision. "Set course for the Zarathi system. We'll investigate while the computer works on the message. If it's hostile, we can always retreat." "Course laid in," Ryan said. "Travel time will be about 8 hours at maximum speed." The ship turned toward the Zarathi system and engaged its faster-than-light drive. Space around them stretched and twisted as they entered hyperspace. Jake returned to his command chair and waited. 2 hours later, Lisa called out with excitement. "Captain, I've got it." The computer broke their encryption. The bridge speakers filled with a strange musical voice. The words were translated into English by the ship's computer, but the original alien sounds came through like crystal chimes mixed with wind sounds. "This is Ambassador Zelthera of the Kelvani Federation. We send this message to any peaceful beings who might hear our call. Our world is under attack by the Vorthon Empire. They demand our surrender and threaten to destroy our cities if we refuse. We are not a military people. We have no weapons to defend ourselves. Our ships are built for trade and exploration, not war. We have tried diplomacy, but the Vorthons will not listen. They want to make slaves of our people and take our resources. If there are any beings of goodwill in the galaxy, please help us. We broadcast on all frequencies, hoping someone will answer before it is too late." The message repeated, and Jake could hear the fear in the alien voice even through the translation. Lisa looked at her captain with wide eyes. "Captain, they're asking for help. These Kelvani are being attacked by another alien species." Dr. Sullivan spoke up. "We can't just ignore a call for help." "These people are in danger," Tony nodded. "The message mentions the Vorthon Empire. That sounds like a military force. If they're attacking peaceful traders, someone needs to stop them." Ryan looked worried. "Captain, we're just one ship. If this Vorthon Empire is as powerful as they sound, we might not be able to help much." Jake studied the star chart on the main screen. The Horizon's Edge was a good ship, but it was built for exploration, not war. They had basic defensive weapons and shields, but nothing designed for major combat. Still, he couldn't ignore people who needed help. "How far are we from the Zarathi system now?" Jake asked. About 6 hours, Captain, Ryan replied. We should arrive in the early morning ship time. Any other ships in the area? Lisa checked her long-range sensors. Nothing, Captain. We're the only human vessel within 50 light years. Jake walked to the front of the bridge again. He thought about Earth Command and what they would say about getting involved in an alien war. He thought about the regulations that said exploration ships should avoid hostile situations. He thought about the safe thing to do. Then he thought about the fear in the alien voice and the mention of innocent people about to become slaves. We're going to help them, Jake said. Tony, I want you to check all our weapons and shields. Make sure everything is working perfectly. Ryan, start planning defensive strategies. We don't know what we're flying into. Captain, Dr. Sullivan said. Maybe we should try to contact other ships for backup. There's no time, Jake replied. By the time help could arrive, these Kelvani might all be dead or enslaved. We're going to do what we can with what we have. Lisa continued monitoring the alien messages. Captain, the distress calls are getting more urgent. I think the attack is intensifying. Jake returned to his command chair. How long until we arrive? 5 hours and 37 minutes, Ryan answered. All right, everyone. Get some rest while you can. When we reach the Zarathi system, we might be facing the fight of our lives. The Horizon's Edge continued through hyperspace toward an alien world under attack. Jake looked at his small crew and wondered if they were brave enough or crazy enough to make a difference. Soon they would find out. The Horizon's Edge dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Zarathi system. Jake immediately saw that the situation was worse than he had imagined. The main screen showed a beautiful blue and green planet surrounded by dozens of dark angular warships. Explosions flickered on the planet's surface like deadly fireworks. My God, Dr. Sullivan whispered. Look at all those ships. Ryan counted them quickly. I see at least 40 warships, Captain. They're much larger than us and they're heavily armed. The alien warships were ugly things, all sharp edges and weapon ports. They looked like giant metal insects feeding on the planet below. Bright beams of energy shot down from the ships, creating mushroom clouds of fire and smoke on the surface. Lisa, try to contact the people on the planet, Jake ordered. Let them know we're here to help. Lisa worked at her console, sending signals toward the planet. After a few minutes, her speakers crackled with the musical voice they had heard before. Unknown vessel, this is Ambassador Zilthera. Please identify yourself. Are you here to help us or to join the Vorthon attack? This is Captain Jake Morrison of the human vessel Horizon's Edge. We received your distress call and came to offer assistance. There was a long silence. Then the alien voice returned, but it sounded different now, scared and excited at the same time. Did you say human? From the planet Earth? From the legendary Deathworld? Jake looked confused. Yes, we're from Earth. Why do you call it a Deathworld? Captain Morrison, you must be joking. Everyone in the galaxy knows about Earth. It is the most dangerous planet ever discovered. The stories say that creatures from Earth are nearly indestructible. We thought humans were just myths, like the monsters in children's stories. Tony looked at Ryan with surprise. Did she just call us monsters? Ambassador Zilthara continued talking. If you are truly human, then perhaps we have hope. The legends say that Terran Deathworlders are the most feared warriors in the galaxy, but surely 5 humans cannot defeat 40 Vorthon warships. Only 5? A new voice broke into the conversation. It was deeper and harsher than the musical tones of the Kelvani. I am General Krexmore of the Vorthon Empire. Did these fools really call for help from 5 Deathworld creatures? The general's laughter sounded like grinding metal. This is perfect. We will capture these legendary humans and display them as trophies. The galaxy will see that the mighty Terran warriors are just another weak species. Jake felt anger building in his chest. General, you will stop your attack on the Kelvani immediately and withdraw your forces. Or what, little human? Your tiny ship against my entire fleet? I have 40 warships and 10,000 soldiers. You have 5 crew members and a cargo vessel. Even if the stories about humans are true, you cannot defeat us. Dr. Sullivan moved to Jake's side. Captain, I don't understand. Why do they think we're some kind of legendary warriors? Before Jake could answer, Ambassador Zilthera spoke again. Captain Morrison, may I ask what the gravity on your ship is set to? Standard Earth gravity, Jake replied. About 9.8 meters per second squared. Why? That would crush most of us instantly, the ambassador said with awe. And your atmosphere? What mixture of gases? Lisa checked her readings. Standard mix. About 21% oxygen, 78% nitrogen, with traces of other gases. Oxygen is poisonous to most species in large amounts, Zilthera explained. You breathe pure poison and live in gravity that would kill us. The stories are true. You really are Deathworlders, Tony laughed. This is crazy. We're just normal people. Normal for Earth, Ryan said thoughtfully. But maybe not normal for the rest of the galaxy. Dr. Sullivan started understanding. Captain, if most alien species come from gentler planets, then what seems normal to us might seem impossible to them. Our strength, our endurance, our ability to survive in harsh conditions. General Crexmore's voice returned. Enough talk. Surrender now or be destroyed. Your reputation means nothing against superior numbers. Jake made a decision. Tony, prepare our weapons. Ryan, evasive maneuvers. Lisa, keep the channel open to both the Kelvani and the Vorthans. Captain, what are you planning? Dr. Sullivan asked. If they think we're legendary warriors, let's not disappoint them. The first Vorthan ships began moving toward the horizon's edge. They approached slowly, like hunters surrounding prey. Their weapons powered up, creating a red glow along their hulls. Ambassador Zilthera, Jake said into the communicator, tell us about these Vorthan. What are their weaknesses? They are a rigid military society, the alien replied. They follow strict rules and never change their tactics. They expect all battles to follow the same patterns. But Captain, you should retreat. Even legendary Deathworlders cannot fight such odds. Jake smiled grimly. Maybe it's time they learned why Earth is called a death world. The first Vorthan attack came like lightning. Energy beams shot across space toward the human ship. Ryan threw the horizon's edge into a spinning dive that avoided most of the shots. The few beams that hit sparked against their shields. Impossible, General Crexmore shouted. No ship can maneuver like that. You haven't seen anything yet, Jake replied calmly. Tony fired their weapons at the nearest Vorthan ship. The alien vessel's shields flared and failed under the concentrated fire. The ship limped away, leaking atmosphere and sparks. How did they penetrate our shield so easily? Another Vorthan voice asked. Dr. Sullivan monitored the enemy communications. Captain, they sound confused. Their weapons are powerful, but they're not used to facing opponents who fight back effectively. They're used to easy victories, Ryan observed. Species that surrender when faced with overwhelming force. Jake opened a channel to all the Vorthan ships. This is Captain Morrison. I'm giving you one chance to withdraw. Leave this system immediately or discover why the galaxy fears Deathworlders. You are bluffing, General Crexmore replied, but his voice carried less confidence than before. Ambassador, Jake said to the Kelvani leader, what do you know about human military history? Only legends and rumors. Stories about wars that lasted for years with millions of casualties. Battles where humans chose death rather than surrender. Tactics so brutal that other species refused to speak of them. Jake realized that their reputation was based on fear and misunderstanding, but it was still a weapon he could use. General Crexmore, Jake said in a cold voice, you're about to learn why those stories exist. The battle was about to begin in earnest, and Jake hoped that human creativity and determination would be enough to save both his crew and the innocent Kelvani below. Jake decided to use the galaxy's fear of humans as his greatest weapon. He opened a communication channel that would broadcast to all the Vorthan ships at once. This is Captain Morrison to all Vorthan forces. You have made a serious mistake attacking peaceful beings under the protection of Earth. I'm going to explain what happens next. Ryan looked at his captain with confusion, but Jake held up a hand for silence. First, you should know that humans consider acceptable casualties to be around 30%. That means we expect nearly 1 in 3 of us to die in battle, and we fight anyway. Second, we have something called scorched earth tactics. If we cannot win, we destroy everything so the enemy gains nothing. Third, we practice mutually assured destruction. If you kill us, we make sure you die too. Dr. Sullivan watched the enemy fleet on the main screen. Several ships had stopped moving forward. Others seemed to be having communication problems as crews talked frantically among themselves. General Crexmore's voice came back, but it sounded less confident than before. You are trying to frighten us with words, human. I'm just explaining our standard operating procedures, Jake replied calmly. For example, Tony here fought in the Earth colony wars. Tony, tell the general about acceptable losses. Tony caught on quickly. Well, Captain, in the siege of New Montana, we lost 60% of our forces but still achieved our objective. Command considered it a successful operation. This was true. Tony had been in that battle. though Jake was stretching the facts. The high casualties were due to equipment failure, not deliberate sacrifice, or 60% casualties, a Vorthan voice whispered over the radio. Lisa joined the psychological attack. That's nothing compared to the Battle of Europa Station. Humans fought for 6 months while completely surrounded. When relief finally arrived, only 12% of the defenders were still alive, but they had held their position. Dr. Sullivan added her own contribution. I've treated soldiers who continued fighting with injuries that would kill most species. Broken bones, massive blood loss, organ damage. Humans just keep going until their bodies completely shut down. The Vorthan fleet was clearly becoming nervous. Several ships had stopped their attack patterns and were maintaining defensive positions instead. Tony worked at his engineering station, making modifications to their weapons. He connected mining lasers to the main power grid and rewired cargo bay equipment to serve as additional shields. To other species, this looked like impossible engineering performed under combat conditions. General, Tony announced over the open channel, I've just improved our weapons by 40% using spare parts and mining equipment. Would you like me to demonstrate? That's impossible, General Crexmore replied. Weapons cannot be modified during battle. You're thinking like someone from a safe world, Jake said. On Earth, we make weapons from whatever we can find. Children learn to build dangerous devices from household items. It's a survival skill. This was somewhat true. Many humans did learn basic engineering and improvisation skills that would seem amazing to species from gentler worlds. Ryan began implementing tactics that seemed insane to the rigid Vorthan military mind. He flew the Horizon's Edge directly at enemy ships, pulling away at the last possible second. He used the planet's gravity to slingshot around and attack from unexpected angles. He even flew through the upper atmosphere, using the planet itself as cover. No pilot would attempt such maneuvers, a Vorthan captain transmitted. The risk of collision is too high. Humans are comfortable with risk, Ryan replied as he narrowly avoided a mountain peak. We evolved on a world where everything is trying to kill us. Dangerous flying is just another day at the office. Dr. Sullivan monitored Vorthan communications and realized they were becoming genuinely frightened. She decided to add to their fear with some medical facts. General Crexmore, you should know that humans can survive in environments that would be instantly lethal to most species. We live in gravity that would crush you, breathe gas that would poison you, and withstand temperature changes that would kill you. Our pain tolerance is so high that we can function normally with injuries that would leave other beings unconscious. This is propaganda, the general replied, but his voice was shaking. It's simple biology, Kate continued. We come from a world with diseases that kill millions, predators that hunt us for food, weather that destroys cities, and natural disasters that reshape continents. Evolution made us tough. Jake noticed that more Vorthan ships were pulling back from the planet. Their attack formation was becoming loose and disorganized. Lisa, play some music for our new friends. Something inspirational. Lisa found recordings of human military songs and broadcast them across all frequencies. The Vorthan crews heard about humans marching into battle while singing about death and glory. They heard songs about soldiers who preferred to die rather than surrender. One song talked about a battle where humans fought against impossible odds and chose death over defeat. Another described warriors who laughed in the face of certain destruction. To aliens who had never experienced such concepts, it sounded like the music of insane demons. They sing about dying, a Vorthan voice whispered. They call it glorious, another added with horror. Tony finished his weapons modifications and targeted the nearest enemy ship. His improvised weapons hit with surprising power, causing the alien vessel to lose its shields completely. Impossible engineering, the ship's captain transmitted. How did they increase weapon power without additional generators? We don't waste time following safety regulations during combat, Tony replied. Risk is just part of the job. Ryan executed another impossible maneuver, diving between two Vorthan ships and firing at both simultaneously. The enemy vessels had to stop shooting to avoid hitting each other. Their tactics make no sense, General Crexmore complained. They should be following standard combat procedures. Standard procedures are for people who want to survive, Jake said calmly. We're more interested in winning. Dr. Sullivan made her next psychological attack by casually discussing Earth's environment. You know, this space battle reminds me of home. On Earth, we have storms with winds over 300 kilometers per hour. We call them hurricanes, and some humans actually go outside during them for fun. For fun? A Vorthon voice asked in disbelief. Oh yes, we also have sports where people jump off cliffs, climb mountains that kill climbers regularly, and race vehicles at speeds that guarantee fatal crashes. Risk makes life interesting. The Vorthon fleet was now clearly in disarray. Ships were pulling back instead of advancing. Several captains were asking General Crexmore for permission to retreat. Hold your positions, the general shouted. They are only 5 beings. 5 Deathworlders, Jake corrected. General, this is your last warning. Withdraw now, or learn why the galaxy tells scary stories about humans. The moment of truth was approaching, and Jake could see that their psychological warfare was working. The question was whether it would be enough to save the Kelvani without having to fight a real battle against overwhelming odds. General Crexmore finally made his decision. All ships, attack formation! We will not be intimidated by 5 Deathworld creatures. Destroy them! The Vorthon fleet moved forward like a wall of metal and weapons. Energy beams filled space around the horizon's edge as 40 warships opened fire at once. Jake knew they couldn't avoid all those shots. Tony, reroute all power to forward shields. Ryan, take us straight at their flagship. We're going to ram them if necessary. Ram them? Dr. Sullivan asked with shock. It's called a suicide run, Jake explained calmly. Sometimes the only way to win is to be willing to lose everything. This was exactly the kind of insane tactic that made humans legendary. The horizon's edge flew directly into the heaviest enemy fire, taking hit after hit. Their shields flared and sparked, but the ship kept moving forward. They're not turning away, a Vorthon captain transmitted with disbelief. They're going to crash into the flagship. All ships concentrate fire on the human vessel, General Crexmore ordered. Stop them before they reach us. But Ryan was flying like a man possessed. He rolled and spun the ship through the enemy formation, taking damage but avoiding the worst of the attacks. The horizon's edge looked like it was falling apart, but it kept flying toward the Vorthon flagship. Captain, Tony reported. Shields are down to 20%. We can't take much more damage. Then we better make this count, Jake replied. Prepare to fire everything we have at point-blank range. Lisa broadcast their attack on all frequencies so every ship could hear. Target acquired. Range 500 meters. Firing all weapons. The modified weapons Tony had built unleashed their power directly into the Vorthon flagship's shields. At such close range, the improvised weapons hit like a hammer blow. The alien ship's defenses failed completely. Impossible, General Crexmore shouted. No ship can survive flying through our entire fleet. You're not fighting a ship, Jake replied as they pulled away from the damaged flagship. You're fighting humans. Dr. Sullivan treated the crew's injuries from the rough ride. Ryan had a broken arm from being thrown against his console. Tony had cuts from flying debris. Lisa had a concussion from a hard impact. Kate herself had bruised ribs. But instead of retreating to treat their wounds, the crew kept working. This shocked the Vorthon crews who were listening to human communications. They're still fighting while injured. A Vorthon voice whispered. The medical officer is treating patients and operating weapons. At the same time, another reported. Dr. Sullivan realized their injuries were becoming psychological weapons. General, you should know that these are minor injuries by human standards. We regularly play sports that cause worse damage than this. Our children participate in activities that would hospitalize most alien species. What kind of world produces such creatures? General Crexmore asked. The kind of world that makes you strong or kills you, Jake answered. Earth has diseases that kill millions every year. We have predators that can tear a human apart in seconds. We have weather that destroys entire cities. We have earthquakes that swallow buildings and volcanoes that bury whole regions in ash. Lisa continued the description while dodging enemy fire. We have insects that inject deadly poison, plants that can kill you by touch, and water that carries flesh-eating bacteria. Most of our planet's surface is covered by oceans full of creatures that consider humans to be food. And you live there by choice? A Vorthon captain asked. We were born there, Ryan said as he executed another impossible maneuver. It made us what we are. Tony added his own contribution to the psychological attack. On Earth, we have something called extreme sports. Humans voluntarily jump out of aircraft, climb frozen waterfalls, and surf on waves that can crush buildings. We do these things for entertainment. The Vorthon fleet was beginning to break apart. Several ships had stopped firing and were moving away from the battle. Others were having communication problems as their crews argued about whether to continue fighting. Ambassador Zilthera's voice came through the communication system. Captain Morrison, The Vorthan bombardment of our planet has stopped. Their ships are pulling back from our cities. Jake realized that their reputation was winning the battle more effectively than their weapons. General Crexmore, your ships are retreating. Are you ready to surrender? We do not surrender to inferior numbers, the general replied, but his voice lacked conviction. Then let me tell you about human history, Jake said. We have fought wars that lasted for decades. We have battles where a few hundred humans held off armies of thousands. We have soldiers who continued fighting even after being mortally wounded. Dr. Sullivan joined the history lesson. At the Battle of Thermopylae, 300 humans held off an army of hundreds of thousands. They all died, but they became legends. On Earth, we consider that a victory. A victory? General Crexmore asked with confusion. They all died. Death before dishonor, Lisa explained. It's one of our oldest concepts. Some things are more important than survival. This idea was completely alien to the Vorthons. Their entire military philosophy was based on overwhelming force and quick victory. The concept of choosing death over defeat was beyond their understanding. Tony demonstrated another human trait by repairing their damaged shields while still under fire. General, I've just restored our shields to 60% power using spare parts and emergency patches. Would you like me to show you how much damage we can take now? You repaired damage during combat? A Vorthan engineer asked. That's impossible. No one can work effectively while being shot at. Humans work better under pressure, Tony replied. Stress makes us focus better and move faster. It's another survival adaptation from our death world. Ryan proved this point by flying even more aggressively as the battle continued. His broken arm didn't slow him down at all. If anything, the injury seemed to make him more determined. Their pilot is still performing impossible maneuvers with a broken limb, a Vorthan observer reported. Pain is just information, Ryan said over the radio. It tells us we're alive. We don't let it stop us from doing our jobs. General Crexmore was losing control of his fleet. More ships were withdrawing every minute. His rigid military structure was collapsing in the face of opponents who fought by no rules he understood. This is madness, he transmitted. How can we fight beings who welcome death and laugh at pain? You can't, Jake replied simply. That's why we're called deathworlders. We come from a place that taught us to be stronger than death itself. The tide of battle had turned completely. The Vorthan Empire was facing something they had never encountered before, an enemy that could not be intimidated, could not be broken, and would not surrender no matter what the odds. The final confrontation came when Jake made the most audacious decision of his career. Half the Vorthan fleet had already retreated, but General Crexmore still commanded 20 ships around his damaged flagship. Ryan, take us alongside their command ship. We're going aboard. Aboard? Dr. Sullivan asked. Captain, that's a suicide mission. Only if we plan to die, Jake replied. Tony, prepare the shuttle bay. Lisa, keep the channels open so everyone can hear what happens. The galaxy needs to know what humans do when peaceful people are threatened. The Horizon's Edge moved close to the Vorthan flagship, taking heavy fire from escort ships. Their shields failed completely, and the hull took direct hits that left scorch marks and holes in the armor. They're coming alongside, General Crexmore transmitted with disbelief. They intend to board us. All security teams to the docking ports. Jake led his crew into the shuttle bay. They wore simple spacesuits and carried basic weapons designed for ship maintenance, not military combat. To the Vorthons monitoring their equipment, it looked like humans were so confident that they didn't even bother with proper military gear. Ambassador Zilthara, Jake said into his communicator, broadcast this to the entire galaxy. Let every species know what happens when someone threatens innocent people while humans are watching. The human shuttle attached to the Vorthan flagship like a parasite. Jake and his crew cut through the airlock with tools that were never meant for military use. The fact that they made it work anyway just added to their legendary status. Inside the alien ship, they found corridors filled with Vorthon soldiers. The aliens were large and heavily armored, with weapons designed for ship-to-ship combat. They should have been able to stop 5 humans easily. But the humans fought like creatures possessed. They used tactics that made no sense to alien minds. Ryan threw himself in front of enemy fire to protect Dr. Sullivan, taking wounds that should have stopped him but continuing to fight. Tony used his engineering knowledge to turn the ship's own systems against the crew, causing power failures and equipment malfunctions throughout the vessel. Impossible, a Vorthan soldier transmitted. They fight like they have no sense of self-preservation. We fight for something bigger than ourselves, Jake replied as he disabled another enemy position. That's what you don't understand. Dr. Sullivan treated her own wounds while providing medical care to injured Vorthans. This confused the alien soldiers completely. Why would an enemy heal their wounded? On Earth, we have rules about treating prisoners and wounded enemies, Kate explained as she bandaged a Vorthan's injuries. We fight hard, but we don't fight without honor. This concept was as alien to the Vorthans as their suicide tactics. The idea that humans could be both deadly, warriors and compassionate healers at the same time didn't fit any military doctrine they understood. Lisa maintained communication with the fleet while fighting her way through the ship. All Vorthan vessels, this is the human communication officer. Your general has lost control of his flagship. We suggest you withdraw before this gets worse. How can 5 beings take over a ship with a crew of 300? A Vorthan captain asked. Practice, Tony replied as he rewired another system to explode when touched. Humans have been fighting each other for thousands of years. We've gotten very good at it. The fighting reached the command bridge where General Crexmore waited with his elite guards. Jake kicked down the door and walked in like he owned the place. His crew followed, looking tired and bloodied but undefeated. General, Jake said calmly, this ends now. Order your fleet to withdraw from Kelvani space. You cannot have won, the general said. You are only 5 beings against my entire crew. Your entire crew is either unconscious, wounded, or hiding, Ryan pointed out. Face it, General. You lost. Dr. Sullivan treated the general's wounds while Jake explained the real situation. We didn't come here to conquer anyone, General. We came to protect innocent people. That's what humans do. But the legends say you are monsters, General Crexmore said weakly. We're only monsters to those who prey on the weak, Jake replied. To everyone else, we're protectors. The revelation hit the general like a physical blow. He had spent his entire career believing that the strongest should rule the weak. The idea that the strongest could choose to protect the weak instead was completely foreign to him. You could have destroyed my fleet, the general realized. You had the power to do it. Destruction is easy, Lisa said. Protection is harder, but it's the right thing to do. Tony finished rewiring the ship's communication system to broadcast throughout the galaxy. General, tell the Vorthan Empire what you learned here today. General Crexmore looked at the 5 humans who had defeated his entire fleet through courage, determination, and moral conviction. The legends are wrong, he said into the communicator. Humans are not monsters. They are guardians. Ambassador Zilthara's voice came through the speakers. Captain Morrison, the Vorthan fleet is withdrawing from our system. The bombardment has stopped completely. Our people are safe. Jake sat down heavily in the general's command chair. Good, that's all we wanted. What happens now? General Crexmore asked. Now you go home and think about what kind of empire you want to lead. Jake replied. One that enslaves the weak, or one that protects them. The return journey to Earth took several weeks. During that time, news of the battle spread throughout the galaxy. The story changed with each telling, but the core message remained the same. Humans were not the monsters of legend, but rather reluctant guardians who answered when the innocent called for help. Ambassador. Zilthara became the first alien diplomat to visit Earth. She was amazed to discover that the legendary Deathworld was indeed as dangerous as the stories claimed, but that its people had learned to be compassionate despite their harsh environment. You could rule the galaxy, she told Jake during her visit to Earth. We don't want to rule anyone, Jake replied. We just want to make sure the strong don't prey on the weak. When the Horizon's Edge received its next distress call, Jake didn't hesitate to respond. Word had spread that there were Deathworlders who stood between the darkness and the light, and people in trouble knew they could call on humanity for help. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. True strength wasn't the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it. And humans, it turned out, were the only species crazy enough to make that choice every single time. Jake looked at his crew as they prepared for another rescue mission. They were still just 5 people on a small ship, but they had changed the galaxy's understanding of what it meant to be strong. Sometimes the greatest victories came not from conquest, but from having the courage to do the right thing when it mattered most. The stars beckoned with new adventures and new people to help, and the crew of the Horizon's Edge was ready to answer the call.